Hey, Mike here with Canadian Musician. Right now we're in actually Burlington Sound and Music Festival. In the trailer of this man next to me, you may recognize him as one of the cornerstones of Canadian hip-hop, Saukrates. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. And your most recent release, the Amani EP, it's about a year or so ago now that it's come out. I believe reading about it at the time, from what I understand, it was those 4 songs were kind of taken from a larger body of work that you had in progress, or
yes.
Correct me if that's wrong, but
no, that's right.
So if that is the case, like now that it's been a year, like where are you at with the follow-up to it? Is it going to be an EP and LP? Do you know what's coming up next?
Well, I mean, what's cool about the way that we're approaching it is there's like nothing's written in stone. It's just the way to be able to market music in a modern business era. So it's never a solid plan, but there's solid material. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it all leads up to an LP called Season 2 to follow up after Season 1, and on and so forth. So, so choosing from that same body of work that I got the first 4 out of, and then also constantly recording, because one thing that it allows us to release material like fresh off the floor. Right out the studio. And then you get a feel for the public while you're recording, rather than unleashing 12 or 17 songs all at once. That for me takes time to gather the best of it. This way it's just like right out my pocket to you. And you find that in the modern music business era, even with things like crowdfunding and all of that, you get people more involved in every step. We haven't gone that route specifically, but it's more like song by song, 4 songs at a time, and get to the LP Season 2. So it's on its way this year. It'd probably be 12 months by the time we get the LP out after the first EP. Okay. But it's good to touch fans.
Keep getting his stuff out
over that time.
Doses,
in small doses. I mean, there are other artists who could drop 2 singles and drop an album right away. I used to be able to do that, but now it seems like it's different for me. I need to go 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 4 by 4 kind of thing. But it's cool because again, everybody gets involved while it's being built. Like the pyramids.
There's actually a bunch of stuff in there I kind of want to touch on, but like it's interesting that you said like part of the appeal of kind of putting out there in small doses constantly, rather than long gaps between releases or whatever, is that you're getting that feedback from fans as you go. And like, some artists, it's maybe not that they don't want that feedback, but they don't want to be influenced by what people like or what people want from them. They just want to create what they create. Like is that to imply that you actually want to be knowing what people are thinking of what you're doing?
Absolutely. 100%. Because there have been records of where I've approached it where I've just kind of locked it all down and taken 2 years to boil down 80 songs down to like 12 or 15 and just lock the public out, saying that, quote unquote, we don't want to be influenced by the radio or popularity in the public, and just do what I do. Doesn't always work. There's no perfect plan. So we figured this way, at least what I can do is touch people song by song, as I mentioned, and in this way it's like you give them an opportunity to give you feedback. I'm just not putting it out there on a website saying I need you to tell me what you think of this. It's more like when as the popularity grows, it's like, okay, this is working.
Okay, you see what's catching,
that might not be working, and we just keep going. I mean, it's actually in the music business, when you approach it that way, it seems like it's come all the way back around to the 50s again with 45 singles, acetates, where put out 2 songs, A side, B side, see what the people feel, tour them. Get them familiar, and eventually work your way up to an album. So it's good after 20 years later. It feels fresh to be able to do it that way. Again, with the means to do it. So without having to go back on the Chitlin circuit per se. I think we've moved up, which is why we're here at Sound of Music in Burlington. It's really cool to be invited to these kind of things because I think that's part and parcel with the public saying, hey, we like what you're doing, keep going, can you come and perform some of it for us today?
For the 4 songs that were on Amani, there are 4 very distinct songs from each other. I don't feel like the EP had, it all sounds like you, but each song had its own vibe to it.
Right.
And for the most part, it was quite different from season 1. It went back to a bit of a grittier sound like you'd had on the Underground tapes.
Yeah, you're right. That's good. Yeah,
and
your homework. Absolutely. Yeah. Sure.
And but like, was that the fact that each of the 4 songs had its own vibe? Was when you were picking those out of the larger body of work that you had, was that intentional? Did you want to be saying something different with each song?
Yes. As you try to make an album out of 4 songs, and hit everybody. And I think some of the coolest comments that came back, even especially from female listeners and female fans, were like, "We're happy he didn't saturate it with chick songs." And it's like, really? That's all you go for? They're like, well, no. You just, out of 4, you give us 1 and it's great. Yeah. Instead of giving us 3 and then just 1 that's hard hitting. So each of them had their own feel, and it's trying to make an album out of 4 songs. And I guess the perfect single would encompass everything about an album as well. You notice with singles, they're not necessarily, especially for new artists, they're not driven at one subject. They kind of, especially in hip hop, they touch on many subjects all in one song. So with 4 songs, okay, well, I have room to share a whole bunch of different ideas. And keep that eclectic vision of subject matter. At least that way, more people will pick it all up. If I like that song, but if I did all of them that way, then the others won't pick it up, because they want something else. And it's just trying to satisfy the masses while satisfying yourself as an artist. Because I love listening to my own music, and I'm a fan of my own music first. So I put myself in their shoes and say, what would I like to hear when it comes to me? And that's why the Amani EP ended up that way. And I feel it will, every cluster of music, when I put it out, will always be that way. Yeah. It has to be. I wouldn't be satisfied. I couldn't drive with it in my car and hear all the same subject matter on the one body of work. Yeah.
Not to look back too much, but you've been kind of alluding to it in like the reception to season 1. Yeah. And I feel like a large part of that was the 13-year gap between the Underground tapes and season 1, and people after that, like kind of I mentioned off the beginning, the Underground tapes is like a benchmark album in Canadian hip hop. Yeah. And it really like set the mark for what Canadian hip hop is and what you are. And after
crazy. It still amazes me to this day how much of a staple that had. It amazes me how much of a staple that album is. And trying to keep up with it. Yeah.
There's kind of 2 parts to this. And for when it came to season 1, like after that 13-year gap, people wanted you. I don't know if they wanted a Underground Tapes Part 2 essentially, but they wanted something that was a clear follow-up to that album. And season 1 kind of caught people off guard because like you labeled it chick songs or whatever it is you said. Yeah. But like there was a crooning aspect to it. It wasn't like gritty, like spitting rhymes like you were on the first album. Yeah. Like did it annoy you in the sense that I'm assuming when you're releasing season 1, that's just where you were at creatively and that's what you're going to put out. But did it annoy you, the reaction to that? And has what you've done since been a reaction to the reaction in a sense? Yes. Yeah. You know what? You're hitting it all the hammer right on the nail. Because with the season 1 album, I figured when I'm recording it, and this is, again, as you mentioned, kind of shutting out the public, and just saying this is what I've been doing, this is what I've grown to do. That album ends up being an accumulation of all the work I've done over those 13 years. I released an album with a group that I led called Big Black Lincoln, and we rapped only on 1 out of 19 songs. On the last song, we sang through that whole thing. And, we're nominated for MMVAs and Junos and is well received. And I'm thinking that everybody knows that this is a part of Saukrates. Yeah. So with the season 1 album, if I go and sing my ass off, you don't think they're going to take it. Yeah. I figure they're going to take it. Yeah. What's interesting is some people do, and some core fans don't. Saying that, well, you changed. And it's like, well, hold on a second. You've been here, you watched all this stuff happen, and now I'm not allowed to do that? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So there is a reaction to the reaction. Yeah.
in saying that I'd mentioned this before. Actually, I'd spoken with another individual who had a similar question, and it was my answer was, well, if we want to put Saukrates in a box, anybody who cares to listen to his music, and my name is Amani, I listen to Saukrates music myself, but if we're going to do that, then as Saukrates, I say, okay, well, I am going to I basically get pushed back in the direction of music that I love. And if it's about the box, then we're gonna play the box, And the box has been well received. It's kind of an odd thing for me. I haven't seen any other artists go through the same kind of transition, as in depth.
Yeah.
So it is the bounce back factor, and you kind of try to come back tenfold, but also expose the talents that this artist has. And not just leave it on the curb. So I'll still sing a hook here or there, like FYEO, and I have Sunreal come in and help me. I'll still arrange the song so it's not just 16 bars a verse and 8 bars a chorus and just mathematically perfect. No, we're gonna play with it. There are bridges, there are peaks and valleys, at least to maintain some of that. And you'll see with the next slew of material that I'm staying in school, like Tony Stark to say, like Ghostface to say, stay in school and keep learning. And I'm learning that with me, as long as I want to experiment, let's just go step by step, and treat the listeners with respect that I would as myself as a listener, and say, okay, they give you this, give you that, and hopefully you like it, but I'm not gonna go off the moon and lose you because I don't want to lose you. You know what I mean? It's like in the studio it can be frustrating. But at the end of the day, when the material is released, it's like, all right, good, on to the next. It's
interesting, like, from that perspective, like the frustration with the reaction to season 1. And like you were just saying there, but you said that the lead up, like releasing this new material in short spurts, is in a lead up to a second LP or a next LP called season 2. And if you're to keep that season name, it's kind of to imply that it'll share some sonic qualities with the first album, but that might not be the case. But after that experience with season 1, why keep things linked to it?
Oh, you know what it is, really? It's simpler than that.
Okay.
I envision a box set eventually.
Okay. Cool.
Get season 1 through 5. Like I bought the box set of Frasier for my wife 2 Christmases ago, and it's like season 1 through 7. And Frasier grows. He cuts his hair after a while, and other characters are introduced. It's really that simple. Sonically, there's no intentional connection from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess the only way that could happen is if it was like Prince, where you had to force it all into like 18 months of recording 7 records trying to get off of Warner Brothers. You know what I mean? Then you have no choice but for it to sound the same, because it's all the same time period. But no, it's just I envision a box set eventually of the material, and it's always kind of looking forward. I look up to guys who have had longevity in the music business, Quincy Jones and Dr. Dre, and I mean, they even have yet to do these kind of box sets. Maybe it might be something cool within the next 10 years that that can be offered, a la Leonard Cohen or Led Zeppelin.
I'm trying to think of something.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin. The Beatles, where the box set is like, wow, here's a journey through time. That's really all it is. It's not season 3 has to feel like a branch from season 2 at all.
Kind of using that as a segue, I see the journey through time. Like, I keep kind of going back to it, but this idea of you as one of the pillars of Canadian hip hop in the last 20 years, and which is kind of just the case. But
it's amazing how that happens, man. I'm still trying to digest that myself, and see how not to take advantage, but see how we can help to maintain that, and not just for Saukrates, but the Canadian hip hop legacy.
Like one of the guys you got kickstarted is Drake, who's everyone knows what Drake's done.
Yeah.
But he has helped put Toronto on the international map.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to hip hop, like there's always been like the LA sound, the New York sound, not the Austin, but the Atlanta sound. Do you feel like looking at the artists that came out of your scene in the 90s and early 2000s and looking at what's coming out of Toronto now, do you sense any kind of unified Toronto sound in hip hop?
No, and that's a good question. I always like when you guys ask that question, because the answer is different. There is not one sound that defines Toronto, and that is what defines Toronto. Is guts to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So Cardinal is my brother. He's my son's godfather. His sound is completely different from mine. But we came up together, 15, 16 years old. The Circle Crew. Saukrates had his own sound. Julie Black, Chaos. Yeah. And the list goes on. And now you've got Shad, Classified, Drake, myself, and guys who are in the forefront of Canadian hip hop. None of us sound the same.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. That is what Toronto is. It's like we have enough courage to do what we want to do as individuals. And that's what shines. That's what I heard Eric Sermon, when I first met him, when I first signed with Redman to Def Jam. He's like, you guys just got this thing where it's like you all stick together, but there's so many different feels coming out of that city. And he went down the list. He mentioned names like Tara Chase, Solitaire. He listed my whole Circle Crew. I was like, how do you know this? And the internet wasn't as popular then in 2000. So there is no specific sound, but there is courage and guts to find your own sound, and that's what defines us. We don't follow others. We just do what we want to do.
It's actually interesting, like, even outside of hip hop, if you look at what gets classified as scenes, whether it's alternative Seattle, the indie rock thing with Arcade Fire and Stars in Montreal in the early 2000s, like New York punk, indie in London, whatever it is, whenever there's a groundswell of bands or artists coming out of one place, there is going to be often a similar sound, just by the nature of they're all playing the same clubs, they're all interacting, and they're influencing each other. So it's understandable how they start having a similar sound. So it's actually, from my perspective, it's actually a bit odd that there was never a unified sound that sort of started to develop in Toronto. Like, were you guys just recording and keeping camps separate musically, but still just cool as friends, or why is that?
No, because we use the same rooms. I mean, as you bring up, the guys that I've worked with and practically family with. Me, Cardinal, and Chaclair and Julie Black, we use the same rooms. Same studio. And then as I move, and all our sounds are different from each other, from one another. Even as we collaborate. Moving forward, fast forward, and when Drake was coming up, and I had me and a couple of my partners had a studio going in Liberty Village, and I had met him and Boy Wonder, and a few other production guys, and Drake just said, "Hey, listen, I need a place to record. I got this song I want you on. Is there a studio you can get me into?" I said, "Absolutely." And I took him to meet. I introduced him to 40. And from there, it's just like, again, you get him in the same studio. We're in the same room, but the sound.
It's totally different.
Absolutely, because that individual is given the space and the backing to just conquer whatever they want to do. So that's before he even started singing, but maybe that's part of the influence. Maybe that's something we share. It's like some courage and an MC having courage and enough faith in his voice to sing as well. And, me and Chaos started that. So for Drizzy to get an opportunity to be around that was awesome for him, and he's given a chance to fly away with it, given a chance to fly away with that, and it set him apart. Same room, different sound. So I think, again, I'll reiterate it. What we do is we give each other the confidence to follow through with our poetry, with our melody, and our beats. period. And I don't think that's ever going to change. That's why Toronto will always, especially from now on, be on the map and on everybody's radar.
Speaking of, finding your own voice, melody, all that, when it comes to your writing style, are you one that's constantly jotting down notes in a book or on a phone or whatever, or do you need the beat or the groove in order to be writing to?
That's both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started out doing things where I would just write it because I didn't have my own equipment to make the beats. Yeah. So I would just write it all down, the titles, write rhymes to beats in my head. But then, boom, you get the equipment, and all of a sudden, okay, you're rocking out on beats, and then you write to the beats. Yeah. And that's all you're going to do because you can't do it any other way. And then all of a sudden, you're on the road, and you don't have the equipment around you, but you need to write this. And, you kind of, as the pendulum swings, depending on the current schedule, you have to find any and every way to be able to do it. Yeah. So, yeah, today, for instance, I won't necessarily have a pen and a pad, but I might pull my phone out and just write down an idea, or I'll hear an old song. I love that sample. What's the name and the artist? What's the name of the artist and the name of the song? Yeah. Write that down and get back to the studio and pull stuff up. And influence comes from everywhere, and how it actually happens, it's like, who knows? Yeah. But I will tell you this: working with as many other talented producers as I do, they help me to get a lot more out of my soul when it comes to writing stuff down. So the music does play a huge part. I hear that beat, I got a song. Yeah. I might not have the song without the beat. Yeah. So that still keeps me excited, not only when I make beats myself, but when I hear other producers like Rich Kid, who's working closely with me, Snaz, who helped out, Millennius from Tone Mason, new kid coming up named Chef Bayer, from out here. I think his studio actually is just out here in Burlington. To name a few. Yeah. These guys, their music, their beats are just so influential. It's like you hear something, it's like, oh, boom, that's a song. I got the concept. Yeah. And it ends up working that way. Yeah. If the beats ain't around and I'm listening to an old school radio station and a concept hits my mind, I write it down. A couple verses, might come to mind, and then I find, who knows? It's not a perfect science again. But, there's no one way to do it, for me at least, after all this time.
You mentioned Rich Kid there. He's an awesome dude that we've met up with a few times in the last couple years at the magazine and whatnot.
Sound of Music Festival as well.
Yeah, he has at some point. And he's, like you said, he's kind of the new generation beat makers and producers. He's pretty. He's significantly younger than you are. Like, what is it that why do you keep going back to Rich? What do you like about working with him so much?
Well, I mean, his beats are amazing. Yeah. But not only that, he also he raps really well, to say the least. That's kind of an understatement. But on top of that, not only Rich Kid, but a lot of the other guys I mentioned, it's just their attitude is in the right place. Yeah. They're ready to grow. They're willing to trot the globe on their own dime and learn, and they always approach it with respect. And it's just like, man, I enjoy working with people like that. I think that's the reason that gave me the opportunity to work with the likes of like Red and Meth, and and Ace and OC and Exhibit and Nelly Furtado. I think they all approach me with the same thing that when I look at Rich Kid, or I look at these guys and I say, or when I looked at Drake when he was first coming, I say, I see in you what they saw in me. Yeah. And it's that lineage. You gotta give something. And Rich Kid is one of my favorites, not only because of his sound, but because of his attitude.
Before we wrap up here, can you say when the next song or collection of songs is going to be out?
Yes, I can actually. I'll say ASAP, but that's kind of cliche. No, but our plan is between now and the fall, because I always love to be a part of the Frosh Week endeavors across the country in September. Yeah. And I'd like those to be on the back of the next slew of material. Yeah. So, another slew of songs, as we did the first chapter, which was an EP, Amani, will come, and then the LP, we will have it out by the fall. Cool. and then that way we did our 12 months and get a chance to tour the full body of work throughout the winter and early spring of next year, and then come again season 3.
Right on, man. And before we wrap up here, you mentioned that you, Drake, Chaos started this rapper-singer thing.
Absolutely.
Just Kanye's latest material where he's singing. Just, do you want to take any credit for that?
Yes. Yeah. Of course. Why not? I mean, the truth is the truth. If you just look in the discography and the dates that the material had been released, I would hope that they got a chance. Not only Kanye, but Andre 3000, and that these guys got a chance to hear our material and give them the guts to go and do that. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know for sure, but I just know chronologically
Makes sense.
that Chaos and I started that. The Big Black Lincoln album pushed it even further with the 4 other members, Shikari Knight, DJ Agile, Tracks from IRS, and Rodala. The 5 of us at that Big Black Lincoln album gave a lot of singing rappers a lot of courage, and here they go now. And everything that you're hearing, what they're doing now, happened after that. So, we'll do the math and let it figure itself out. So, but for now, I'd say me and Kevin, we got them. We'll take credit for that, absolutely. And then give Drizzy the torch and let him say, yeah, we got it. So that's the trifecta right there, 3 on 3.
That's man. Sox, man. I really enjoyed this. Thanks a lot for this, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Take care.